Hello and welcome to the UFO Disclosure. A few weeks ago, I uploaded a video to our series of breaking paranormal news since there has been a lot of new information as of late. This consisted of pretty much all topics, but I did dedicate a good portion of that time to recent news from the famous gimbal footage. Little did I know, mere moments after uploading the video, that there would be quite a huge development that week that needed to be addressed. I realize that there isn't enough information about this to encompass a whole video, so I will be including various theories and ideas that have been presented as well. On May 17th, the United States held a congressional hearing where it questioned officials from the Pentagon on their investigations of what they now call UAPs. I plan on examining this term later in the video. The two officials present were the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, named Scott Bray, and Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, Ronald Moultrie. This comes on the heels of a report provided by the Pentagon on June 25, 2021 that was supposed to include all the information they had on UAP sightings. What was provided was handed over to a committee, and a few weeks later the public was given a 9-page version. It obviously couldn't include things that posed a threat to secret projects, but 9 pages seems very thin for a catalog of reports reaching back 50 to 60 years. Either way, this document indicated that there have been many reported sightings, but much like Project Blue Book, they were classifying them into 5 groups. These would be airborne clutter, natural atmospheric events, classified projects, foreign targets, and finally, other, in which this last category stated that there were a handful of reports that fit since their classification would be pending on scientific advances that would allow us to better understand them. Basically meaning, we currently don't have theories or technology that can explain what those reports depict. This included the gimbal footage, where the object displayed unusual flight characteristics. Anyway, what was important about this meeting was it was the first time that the topic of this nature was sincerely discussed since 1966. While it didn't provide all the information we may have liked, I do give it credit that so many officials honestly seemed to express a genuine interest in the topic. What the hearing brought to light was that with the original report, they investigated 143 sightings and only one of the objects came up as something known. It was further elaborated that there were over 400 reports from last year, and many of them were near or directly over military training facilities. Shockingly, it was also mentioned that there were 11 reports from military pilots encountering a near miss with such craft. The tone took a different stance from the previous report, where it was admitted that these objects possessed capabilities that they were confident weren't from other countries, and that they did pose a serious risk to national security. When asked if we have ever fired upon or had communication with a craft, it was stated that they haven't on both regards. It was odd that it was also claimed that it was believed the UAPs were unmanned vehicles, although no information was given as to how they came to that conclusion. A previously unseen video from 2021 was then shared of a silver-colored spherical object that was taken by a pilot while in an FA-18 fighter jet. The anomaly was said to have quickly passed by the jet's cockpit once it drew near. Another video showing a flashing triangular object was also shown, but it was believed to have been created by light passing through night vision goggles. Although in this same presentation, it was again mentioned that the triangular UAPs are thought to be unmanned craft. So take that for what it's worth. When asked if we have collected any material from one of these objects, it was denied. It was also stated that, while it is uncertain what these things are, they are not willing to admit that they are extraterrestrial. Scott Bray did mention that various other countries have encountered similar reports, and were working with the US to share what they have seen. Interestingly, when the topic of USOs came up, the meeting turned into a private affair, and we don't know what was discussed other than all the information was classified. As a bit of a side note, it really irritates me that the term of UFO is now being changed across the board to UAPs, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. This was began by the officials of the military. While the term itself isn't troubling, the reason for the change is. In their own reasoning, they claim that the old verbiage of UFO carried with it a stigma, and they wanted to distance themselves from it. Now, anyone who follows along with this particular topic probably already knows why this is somewhat irritating. When people first started reporting sightings of strange objects in the sky, it was written about utilizing the term UFO, purely in its virginal form, as in, something unknown that is in the air. The first American report even dated back to March 1st, 1639, from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Soon, many more reports began to emerge, and it suddenly became a problem to the government. So much so that they decided the best way to handle it was to cover up the stories. Rather than hiding this information, they started what can only be described as a smear campaign against any and all reports of UFOs. Under the Robertson panel, which were a part of Project Blue Book, they devised a plan to have the military publicly downplay sightings, for the media to provide false debunking articles, and they even utilized Disney to do the same. After this, they hired celebrities to ridicule the idea of UFOs, which included calling those who see them or believe in them crazy people. Then they brought psychologists and astronomers on board to do much of the same, but under the mindset that these were the expert opinions. Finally, the last part of the plan even involved keeping track of and spying on civilian groups who were showing an interest in UFOs. In case you're curious, this information isn't a conspiracy theory. It is actually well documented and admitted to. Sadly, not a lot of people know about it though. This same policy can be seen today, with every news report being met with the anchors talking about it with a smile on their face or outright laughing. UFO sightings have become more frequent and are being recorded rather than just being by word of mouth, many of which coming from military personnel. So, a different term needed created that didn't tie in with the very one that they themselves demonized for many years. Hearing it said that the term UFO needed changed because it carried a stigma by the very people who created that stigma is quite irritating. So, as I leave my soapbox on that topic, I do want to say that I will continue to utilize the term UFO since it still fits, and doesn't inherently mean alien origin. Sorry, that's been on my chest for quite a while now. Now, this opens a very interesting topic. I couldn't find an accurate poll for our subject since I simply wanted to see how many people in the US believed in UFOs. However, I did find a recent one that indicates over 50% of people believe the craft are of alien origin. When it comes to UFOs, or if you want to be current, UAPs, there are commonly two categories that people fall into. All UFOs, if real, are terrestrial based, meaning part of some secret military program, or most UFOs are from extraterrestrials. The idea that UFOs simply don't exist, especially in light of these recent reports, is fairly an archaic argument. I am more in line with the idea that while some UFOs are secret projects, this disclosure highly suggests that there are quite a few that very well may be from something else. Even when it comes to the alien side of this topic, it opens up a whole new set of categories that each have their own particular merits behind them. Most all people believe that there is life somewhere out there in the vastness of space. However, the question comes into play if they have ever visited our planet. Some feel that aliens have or are visiting Earth, others say that they are out there but are as planet-locked as we are, and there is another group who even feels that they are on Earth and live undetected on our surface. I will note that there are some who believe aliens are actually a version of us who began on our planet, left for some reason, and are now returning. Oddly enough, earlier this month, Professor Brian Cox, a physicist at the University of Manchester, made a statement that he believes aliens could exist, but they are likely to be found in another galaxy. This is where the scientific community frustrates me a bit. Just in our galaxy alone, the Milky Way, it is believed that there are possibly over 100 billion other exoplanets, with new ones being discovered every day. Not only this, but out of that number, 40 billion of those are thought to be capable of supporting life. With the closest exoplanet, named Proxima Centauri b, being 4.2 light years away, it has always felt rather odd that the scientific community would outright posit that life couldn't have developed much like ours in the same galaxy. Now, if the doubts come from the idea that this life isn't capable of reaching our planet, then I think it would be more of a feasible assumption. With the government report, I found something very fascinating, with a description that the government feels that these crafts are unmanned. In the past, we have talked about many alien encounters, where the witness claims that the being is very akin to a robotic creature. Honestly, these types of reports are way more common than any that would be deemed flesh and blood. This makes me wonder if something else isn't going on here. Is it possible that the craft we are seeing houses a type of robotic drone? Better yet, I have considered the fact that the UFOs we see are actually remote craft sent out by a planet-locked species. Due to it taking so many years to reach another solar system, by the time it arrives here, they may already be extinct. As mentioned previously, if we wanted to reach the closest quote-unquote solar system, it still would take around 4 years to do so, traveling at the speed of light. A little somber to think about, but yet very possible. As I end this, I feel it may be the best time to look at what we learned with this report. While there were interesting admissions, such as it being stated there were sightings that can't be explained, I feel we are still in the same boat as before. None of us expected officials to outright admit that the sightings were of alien origin, and we weren't disappointed. In fact, while they stated the sightings couldn't be explained and that they didn't know what they were, they also staunchly said it wasn't alien. It feels a lot like they were reverting back to the 1950s poll, where it was believed admitting knowledge of aliens would cause civil unrest. While I think this is an outdated idea, and most people would be fine with this knowledge, I can understand why it would be scary. Being the nearest exoplanet is 4.2 light years away, then if a civilization had technology to make it to Earth, that would mean they would be greatly superior to us. In this idea, there would be no telling what they'd be capable of. Who knows? Maybe they are looking for another habitable planet, much like we are looking at Mars. Some good did come out of this, since the committee did state that all military personnel are now encouraged to openly file reports of UAP encounters without fear of ridicule. It was said that they honestly want to understand what these things are, and the more data, the better. This is a big change from the past, since most soldiers feared the negative impact such information would place on their careers. I hope this is a real thing, and not just something said to quell the concerns of the public. We all know how terrible the military handled previous sightings with Project Blue Book. The other good thing is that it has effectively taken the topic of UFOs from a taboo idea and brought it more to the mainstream. At the very least, regardless of how legitimate the concerns actually are, we at least can say that on face value, the government is actually taking the idea of UFOs more seriously. In all regards, they definitely should, since any unknown craft would be a cause for alarm, especially those that seem to possess technology and maneuverability greater than ours. The final good thing to take away from this is that while they stated these craft weren't alien, they essentially said they might be. Remember the categories of sightings? Dark projects and military craft had their own category, and yet some of the reports fell into the unknown sector. Just by stating that there exist reports and videos that show objects that go beyond our scientific understanding speaks volumes. It also serves to rule out many people's view that these videos show things that are secret military planes, especially since there is a category specifically for that. Not to mention that none of the videos or reports were noted to which category that they were being placed. At the end of the day, believers will gain what they want from these meetings, and skeptics will do the same. However, regardless of which side of the fence someone sits on, we still have the important step taking place of an open discussion about a topic that was once only apt for ridicule. To me, that is the most important part of this whole thing. Before closing this out, I did want to note that I really tried to get this video out last week, but it really felt like everything was working against me. We had 2 power outages, and even our internet provider had issues. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my videos with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.